Good morning, everybody. Happy Thursday. I believe it's Thursday. Yes, Thursday, October 3rd. How are you? Hope that you're doing well. Really looking forward to spending some time together with you. It's always such a special time, really a blessing to be able to spend time together and be able to talk about data science and kind of live in that fellowship with each other and develop each other's skills and really just kind of help keep data science growing. So really appreciate that you're here and that we're going to be able to spend some time together today. Um, for those of you that are new, because I'm still getting a lot of new users, I ask people to do, we do our global roll call, and in that I ask people to introduce themselves. Please let us know your city, state, province, country, and that way, we can kind of get to know each other. It's also a good way for you to participate and really just a way for us to keep the chat professional and, remind us all that we are in the professional pursuit of data science. I also try to give an opening note with every stream that I do. And then after that, we'll get more into our discussion. I may or may not take questions today. I haven't really decided. But really, the spirit of today is more about being able to talk about this article that I had sent out that you're going to find posted in your chat. I've pinned the article to the chat. I found this article that came out yesterday from Bloomberg, and I just thought it'd be fun to discuss it. So I've included that in the chat. So I also sent it out on the Discord last night. So maybe a couple of you got a chance to read it ahead of time, which would be great. But we're gonna see where the discussion takes us today. This is why I love doing live streams, because we just never know where we're gonna end up, right? I mean, it's just a way for us to talk about data science. This is why I run the world's first and only daily data science stream. I might be the only data science stream, although I know there are a couple of people out there who do data science. A couple of them have reached out to me. But that's the plan for today, guys. So again, please let me know your city, state, country, province. I already see some people filling up my chat, which is fantastic. Keep going. Just keep on doing that. And and then this is kind of like where I like to give my opening note. For my opening note, there's just so many good questions that I've received over the past few days that sometimes it's hard to pick kind of where I want to go, and I make it kind of like a game time decision, right? I'll just pick when I'm on the stream. So what did I want to talk about today? Yesterday we talked about the motivation in the 20s because that was a great question that I got the other day. What is a good one that I want to talk about? Guys, for today I'm drawing a blank on which one I want to talk about. So let's talk about neural networks, and let's talk about Gen AI, because that was an interesting question. Somebody had asked me about how they had read an article that said that Gen AI, the creators of Gen AI, like OpenAI, aren't always able to figure out why neural networks come up with or their Gen AI comes up with the answers that they do, how they make those inferences. And in turn, if you don't know the inferences, then you don't know the mistakes, right? You don't know why or how the mistakes are being caused. And that is true. A lot of people are kind of shocked when they hear that, but it's very true. When you hear OpenAI saying, well, we really don't know why certain things are going wrong or how to fix them quickly, that sounds like a cop-out, but it's actually true. It's actually true. It's particularly true when it comes to natural language processing. Because it's really hard to say, well, these words are being inferred by these other words, which are inferred by other words. And it's really, it almost literally is impossible. So what does that mean from a legal perspective? From a legal perspective, it means that sometimes when you're working with neural networks, they are very, very hard to undo, extremely hard to undo. You can't just tell the neural network, well, don't do that. Because if you don't know where in the neural network those answers, those results are coming from, then how can you tell it not to do something, right? So OpenAI is having problems in various parts of the world around that, where they are having problems in undoing some of the violations that they are causing. Some countries have very strict personal privacy laws that OpenAI has violated. They have clearly violated. And OpenAI's stance has been that, well, we recognize that we're violating it, but we can't do anything about it. And you could definitely raise arguments about, well, that shouldn't have happened to begin with, but they are not wholly incorrect. They are not wholly incorrect that it's not something you can just undo quickly. So what that means for you and why I'm bringing this up is because we're really talking about two things here. We're talking about the explainability of neural networks, and we're talking about human validation. I cannot begin to tell you how many companies overlook the importance and the execution of human validation. Whenever you work on a project, particularly an NLP project, make sure that you are going into that project with enough human validation support behind you, whether that's from an external source or from your stakeholders or something else. Make sure that you have the human validation side already lined up, because that's really where OpenAI is failing in this scenario. Now, don't get me wrong, it's also a failure of their leadership. You guys know that I don't always take a very high opinion of these Silicon Valley leaders. I think most of them are sociopaths. It's also a failure of leadership there. But you can only play the role that's in front of you, right? So for your role as a data scientist at all levels, make sure that you are asking for the appropriate amount of support on the human validation side. If you don't do that, that will come back and bite you at some point, just as it's doing for OpenAI now. I'm sure OpenAI does have a significant human validation staff behind them, but on a smaller scale, for the projects and companies you're going to be working for, a lot of companies overlook how much time, effort, and investment it takes to have an appropriate human validation staff behind you, because those are the people that are going to be able to find those types of errors well ahead of your deployment, or well ahead it's going to prevent you from going too far down your algorithm development road before somebody can say, hey, wait a minute, something's wrong here, right? So keep that in mind. If you'd like to ask more questions about that, feel free to let me know in the chat. But super important when it comes to managing your neural network projects. All right, so again, if you're just joining us, please let us know your city, state, country, province. Love to hear from you. Shows our global community, easy way for you to participate. I'm already seeing some names in here, so I'm going to start going down, and then we'll get into the primary section of our session. So, wow, today is the first day where our first user is from Kik. That's awesome. All right. Keep growing that Kik presence. Bani Resh, hi, Iresh from India. Welcome, Iresh. How are you? Let us know what part of India you're from. India is such a big country. You can't just tell us India. You gotta be more specific. So, but welcome, Aresh. Glad to see you. Yassine, hello, sir. Yassine from Tangier, Morocco. Our good friend Yassine, such a great supporter. Thank you so much, Yassine. Thanks for being here. Speaking of great supporters, our friend Fatima from Meekness. Hey, Fatima, how are you? Hope you're doing well out there. Wow, we have 3 Moroccans in a row. I'm big in Northern Africa, guys. I'm telling you. Hello, sir. Hope you're doing well from Morocco. I'm doing very well, thank you. It's a beautiful day out. Gonna take my dog to the park later. You know, it's a beautiful day out. I can't complain. You know. Yesterday somebody asked me, or somebody made a comment that I made a video reply to, talking about how they felt bad because I have to reply to the same questions over and over again. Guys, you got to keep your problems in perspective, right? So when I'm fortunate to have traveled, I've seen a lot of the world. I'm smart enough to know that there's a lot of suffering in the world, a lot of tough conditions in the world. So if I'm alive, if I'm breathing, if I got a roof over my head, I'm doing well, So thank you so much for the good wishes, Osama. So I'm doing well. Thank you so much. Manoj says, good morning, Suriname. Manoj from Bangalore, India. Manoj, you always introduce yourself such a great way. So thanks a lot for being here, Manoj. Hope you're doing well. Rex, our good friend Rex. Good morning, everyone. Rex from NYC. Rex, our reliable moderator over there on Twitch. Thanks so much, Rex. Appreciate your help. Let's see. Oh, Sam. Sam, how are you? Hello from BKK, from Bangkok. Sam's here. Missed a few great sessions. Hope I didn't miss a great fish. Didn't miss a great fish? I don't know if that's a reference. I don't know, but Sam, we missed you too, so glad to see you back. Glad to see you back. Rex, over there on Twitch, being such a great host. Thanks so much, Rex. Leo, our good friend Leo, says good morning, everyone. Leo from Morocco, New York City. So guys, if you see the little wrench next to Rex's name and Leo's name, that means that they're my moderators. They help me out on a volunteer basis. So thanks so much for them. Make sure that, you give them a shout out when you see them because, they really help me out a lot. So thanks to Leo and Rex. I don't think I see any other moderators in my chat, but thanks a lot to both of them. Kevin says hi from Canada. Kevin, good to see you, my friend. So guys, Kevin is a longtime friend of mine from Canada, really good guy, really smart business guy. So shout out to Kevin. Thanks so much for joining us, Kevin. Really appreciate you being here. I know you're a busy guy, so thanks for hanging out with us and meeting the rest of the chat. But shout out to Kevin there from Canada. Thanks so much for joining. So Iresh says, from Kalaburagi in the state of Karnataka. Okay, cool. I can't say I'm familiar with that part of India, but very cool. Glad to have you here. Leo, I guess you're laughing about the Morocco, New York City. Hi from Philippines, enjoying your session. Wonderful. Thanks so much, Joanna. Thanks for being here. Joanna, it's probably a little bit on the late side for you. I know that my time is not terribly convenient for most of Asia, so I'm guessing it's pretty late in the Philippines. So thanks so much for joining us. Leo says, that means I'm the manager. All your complaints can be directed to me. Don't bother the artist. That's hilarious. That's hilarious. So I got Leo as my manager. I got Casual Economist over there doing my accounting because he keeps track of my user growth. And we got Rahul doing the attendance because he's tracking who's here and who's not. So that's hilarious. That's hilarious. I got a whole staff around me. Thanks for that, Leo. Nikki says, here from India, experience in analytics using mostly Excel. Okay. Best sources you'd recommend for learning modeling, regression, clustering, and getting started with the data science side of things. Welcome, Nikki. I don't think it's your first time, but welcome back. Sure. So I have an entire 8-part series on the Introduction to Statistical Learning book. So if you are somebody like Nikki and you have some analytics, you have a little bit of training, but you want to go to the next step, this is it right here. If you don't know this book, you absolutely should. This is the Bible of data science, right? There are no I guarantee you there are very, very few professional data scientists that don't know this book. If you're a professional data scientist, you've probably been through this book at some point. I have a whole 8-part series where I teach all 10 chapters of this book. So that's probably your next step. If you have some analytics and you want to do more of the modeling side, that's probably your next step. I will post a link in the Discord later. So if you're already a member of the Discord, look for that link later. That's what I would recommend to you, Nikki. If you a little bit of experience, but you want to go to that next step for modeling, that's the book to go to. Ticks, we usually ask people to introduce themselves, let us know your city, state, province, country. And that goes for anybody, who's arriving late. We always get some late arrivals. Let us, we ask people to introduce themselves. Good way to participate, keep the chat professional. So please let us know your city, state, province, country. So by the way, guys, if you check your chats, I have put in, actually, I haven't done it on Instagram yet. So let me do that quickly on Instagram. But I have pinned a link to an article that we are going to discuss today. It just came out yesterday. It caught my eye. And I really think that it'll make for an interesting discussion today. So I have just pinned it to Instagram. You're already going to find it on Twitch, Kick, and on YouTube. So please feel free to check that out because I think it'll make for a good discussion, right? In fact, I think we've done all the introductions. If you still want to introduce yourself, not too late for that. But otherwise, I think we're ready to go into the article discussion, right? Or if anybody has any other pressing questions, put them in the chat. Otherwise, I'm ready to go ahead and start the discussion. What do you guys think? So let me know if there's any last minute introductions or questions. By the way, guys, really enjoyed the session yesterday. Yesterday, we talked a lot about discipline and motivation and, kind of what keeps you going. Really appreciate all the participation yesterday, all the viewpoints. I think we had a really good discussion yesterday. So let me start bringing up my classroom view. All right. So I spotted this article yesterday in Bloom. I do a lot of my news finding through Yahoo News. I found this article yesterday that's provided by Bloomberg. And, a super eye-catching title, right? AI can only do 5% of jobs, says MIT economist who fears crash. What a great headline, right? Whatever you think of Bloomberg, Bloomberg has some great headlines, right? And I think that's a really good headline. So something like this will always catch my eye, and I love reading articles like that. Now, you guys know that I focus on the meta view, right? So here's the meta view that I want all of you to kind of walk away with today. Why, first question is, why are we doing this? Right? Why is this even catching my eye? Clearly, well, maybe not clearly, but you can pretty much infer from the title that this isn't like a technical article, right? This isn't going to teach us any technical skills. But I encourage you to start reading articles like this, right? Stuff like this is really important. Here's why. When it comes to AI, data science, and I think even science in general, I think it's important for you to have an opinion. It's important for you to have a position. It's important for you to have principles that you're sticking to in your study, in your approach to the data science field. It's very important for you to have those principles that drive you. I think that's the primary need. As a secondary aside to that, we are still in a massive growth period in AI and data science. So as you get out there, as you start talking with more people, as you establish yourself in the field, people are going to ask you things, right? Hey, how do you feel about self-driving cars? Hey, I read this article. What do you think about NVIDIA? Hey, I read that Elon Musk said this. What do you think about that? It's hard for you to establish yourself as a professional and to keep people's esteem of you if you don't have a position on some of these things. So I want us to discuss this article. I think there's a lot of takeaways here. But the meta view that I'm really encouraging everyone to have is it's important to have a position. It's important for you to have an opinion on these things. If you don't have that, then are you really an expert? Is Robert from accounting really going to view you as an expert if you don't have an answer on how you feel about self-driving cars? Probably not, right? So you got to have an opinion on these, both to guide you and to help other people and to keep that professional status, right? It's super important because that person who asks you that is going to either walk away with saying, hey, they gave me a pretty interesting view. They gave me an interesting opinion. Or they're going to say, that's our new data scientist. He sounds like an idiot. Right? So it's important for you to have some sort of view on these things. Take a position. Have an opinion. Right? Equally important to that, or really kind of related to that, is have a rationale. Why are you forming that opinion? Why did you just tell Robert from accounting about X, Y, and Z? Right? Really important to do that. Also, opinion papers can make good articles. They can make good things that you post on LinkedIn to establish yourself. Maybe include some on your resume. Opinion papers can be a little bit more tricky to include on a resume, and I'm happy to expand on that later. But they can still make a good exercise for you to get your view out there, to demonstrate your rationale. If you've seen my content before, you guys know that it's not always about the end result. It's about the rationale. It's about what you use to get there, right? So, make sure you have an opinion on some of these things. Super important, guys. All right, so I don't like to bias the conversation. So I like to give my opinion last. So I know that some of you have viewed the article, right? Some of you maybe viewed it prior to the session. Maybe some of you are viewing it right now. So what do you guys think? You don't have to give me a full rundown. Just give me your initial thoughts. Give me your initial thoughts on this MIT economist, right? Give me your initial thoughts on what they say, why the rationale that they're presenting, and what's your view? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you have a different view? Let me know. Let me know in the comments. I'll give you guys a few minutes there. Mafood, our good friend Mafood. Hello, everyone. Hope you're having a good day. Mafood, I think we're having a great day. So Mafood, we're discussing an article from Bloomberg via Yahoo Finance or Yahoo News. So you should find that pinned in your YouTube. So let us know what you think. Satyam, our good friend Satyam. Good morning, Dennis from Delhi, India. How's your morning? My morning's going great, Satyam. Thank you so much. Like I said, every day above ground's a good day, right? So can't complain. Can't complain. Too much suffering in the world for me to complain about my life. But yeah, doing great. Hope the same for you and your family. Fittest Guy 10 says, yes, I agree. I'm assuming you're referring to having a position, having a rationale. So yeah, I really think it's important, guys. So let's start practicing, right? Let's use this session to practice those types of skills. Very important to have in life. I don't talk about this a ton, but as some of you may know, I'm very bearish on self-driving cars. I think that there are some problems in life that machine learning can't solve, and I think that self-driving cars is one of them. And the beauty of that is that I had that opinion very early on. I have articles going back to 2017 where I talked about this, about self-driving cars, maybe even earlier, maybe even it was 2016. So seeing where they are now, it does provide a little bit of satisfaction to be able to say, hey, I was writing about this. I was writing about this back in 2016. So sometimes, those position papers can also help you in that way, where you can say, well, look, I saw this coming, and I saw this coming a long time ago, and here's why. Here's the rationale I presented, right? So opinion papers can be helpful, not just today, but down the road. I mean, that position paper I wrote 8 years ago, and it still holds today, right? So super important for you to have a position on something, okay? Fittest Guy, thanks for introducing yourself. Siddharth from India. Welcome, Siddharth. Glad to see you here. All right, guys, don't be shy. Let me know. What do you think? What's your view on this article? Is he right? Is he wrong? Do you agree on some things? Do you agree on other things? To me, it seems like there are very specific reasons you could cite to agree or disagree. And then there are also meta reasons to agree or disagree. Who knows, right? There's kind of different ways we can go about this. And remember, guys, we're going to respect everybody's opinion. Your ability to express your opinion and your ability to accept others people's opinion. Critical in data science, right? Critical in science overall. So don't be shy about sharing. There are no wrong answers. But what do you guys think? So I like this section because he presents 3 different scenarios. So we're going to talk about those. All right, Leo says, well, I think the headline doesn't highlight his true thought about AI developments. Okay. So Leo, what's your take? What's your take on what his true thoughts are about AI development? And maybe you're kind of highlighting these three because he does lay out three different scenarios, right? You know, maybe that's what you mean, Leo, or maybe not. Maybe you have a different view. That's okay. But anybody else? Anybody else want to give their thoughts? You can just choose to agree. You can just say I agree or I disagree. That's okay. If anybody needs me to zoom in, I can do that. I agree with the article headline, but percentage may be subject to advancements are afforded improving both software and hardware infrastructure. No imminent threat to lose jobs to AI in 4 years. Okay. Okay. So Sam, does that mean that you think that the hardware and infrastructure adjustments are going to take longer? Like, is that why you're putting the 4 years on it? Or what's the rationale for 4 years? I'm curious about that. Michael, our good friend Michael from Lagos. Hello, Dennis and everyone. I'm late, got stuck in traffic. Well, I hope the Uber driver wrote you a note, Michael. If you're going to be late, guys, you got to bring a note. Hope you're doing well. All right, Yassine says, one thing that's not kicking with me is the fact that he's basing his predictions on the current state and capability of AI, lacking a consideration of the rate of improvement. All right. Yassine, I love it. I love that you included the rationale. Well, actually, let me clarify things, okay? I love that Yassine included a rationale, right? Super important to include a rationale, right? And I also love it because I'm biased, okay? I also agree with that. I think that this guy is completely, and by the way, it's a very common mistake, but he's completely underestimating how fast the models will learn. So I'm seeing that in Yassine's statement, and I 100% agree with that. In fact, I've done a little bit of content about this for LinkedIn because it's the #1 mistake I see most executives out there making. Do not underestimate how quickly AI models will learn, right? So to me, everything you're seeing now, everything, Llama, Gemini, the video generators, DALL-E, all of that, this is all just one massive proof of concept. They're just gonna like take off from here, right? Like the speed is gonna be incredible. This article, this MIT guy is completely uneducated on that, right? So I totally agree with you, Yassine. I love your rationale. So I hate that I just biased the chat because I think I'm giving away a lot there. But Yassine, I love the way you presented your view and your rationale. I hope that everybody can, do the same. Mafood says AI has the potential to revolutionize various industries and create new opportunities, but its impact will likely be uneven across different sectors and job types. Okay, Mafood, I can get on board with that. But what do you think about this guy though? He says 5%. Do you think it's higher or lower than that? Because yes, it can be an uneven impact, but there's still but what do you see as the net? Is it going to be higher or lower than 5%? So let us know, Mafood. So Fatima says, in my opinion, AI is great for automating repetitive work, but it still lacks the adaptability and emotional intelligence needed in many jobs. While AI will keep evolving, I believe that human skills will remain essential in many areas, and the focus should be on how we adapt to and complement these technologies rather than fearing them. Okay. I love the way you presented your view, Fatima. Here's where I'm stuck though. Automating repetitive work. We already have that. It's machine learning, right? Machine learning does the automation of repetitive work, right? So I don't know. I think AI goes beyond that. I don't know, Fatima. What do you think? Because I feel like your statement you could have said about machine learning, right? Because machine learning is not emotionally intelligent. It does do the repetitive work. It's great for that, right? It has kept evolving. So I don't know, Fatima. Let me know what you think. Leo says, I also don't agree with the fact that AI success equals humans losing jobs. Okay, maybe some yes, but it only would happen if we miss the education factor that comes with advancements. Yes, we can lose some jobs, but new ones are being created. Some we still don't know how they're going to look like. Yep. If you keep the premise that big companies are only investing because they want to get rid of human labor, then he's right, but I don't think that's the reality. If you keep the premise that big companies are only investing because they want to get rid of human labor, then he's right, but I don't think that's the yeah, okay. I like that statement. So you're saying that the investments are happening not with the intent of replacing jobs, but with the intent of many other things, right? Which yeah, I mean, I think that's true. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Maybe we're assuming that, oh, AI is coming to replace jobs. No, maybe AI is just coming to improve our lives, right? Yeah, I can get on board with that, Leo. I appreciate that view. And by the way, if you're shy or, maybe you don't have a full position, you can just say, hey, I agree with Fatima. I agree with Leo or whatever, right? You can give your view that way. But, again, it's super important for you to have a position, right? So Sam says, my POV is based on oil and gas industry. I love the way you're framing that, Sam, right? You can say, hey, look, here's my rationale, but this is why. I like that. Good job. It's heavily regulated workplace and environment in any process plant where we need explosion spark certifications. AI-powered hardware are in the far future. Okay. I'm just, you know what, Sam? I'm ignorant to the oil and gas industry, and I appreciate your expertise. But I'm going to play the other side here, okay? Because I have worked in heavily regulated industries like banking, right? So your mention of certifications kind of caught my eye, right? There's certifications, there's regulations, there's risk management you have to do, government filings, right? I'm positive you're doing that too, right? Wouldn't AI actually help you in that? Because when it comes to those types of filings and filling out those forms and all that, the potential for human error is high, right? So you'd kind of want that to be an automated AI process, wouldn't you? Like, I actually see a lot of opportunities there for you to be using AI. Like, the more risk your company has, in those types of government regulations and permits and filings and all that stuff, like the more you kind of want to use AI, no? Right? Let me know what you think about that, Sam. Leo says, yes, we should expect some jobs lost, but not like Sam Altman thinks. AI is a tool that can incredibly enhance the human productivity and creativity, not take over. Okay, cool. Cool. Crazy Sam, I think of a future where GPT would do anything. That's not a future I would like to live in, to be honest. Yeah, there's something to be said for that. So Leo, same question that I gave Mafood. What do you think about the 5%? Is it going to be higher than that? Because he says 5%. What do you think? Higher or lower than that? Because I'm on board with what you're saying about enhancing jobs, right? But there are going to be some jobs that are going to be like severely affected where you are going to have to cut some people, right? So what do you think? You know, guys, if you want to do that, just tell me what you think about the 5%, right? Like, again, I hate to bias the chat, but to me, that sounds awfully low. Right? And my rationale is, one, there's a lot of jobs out there, right? There's a lot of job categories. And two, like, you know, knowing what I know about AI, knowing how I think how quickly it's going to advance, I think it's going to be more than 5%, right? So that's me. What do you guys think about the 5%? Because all of you are kind of like, you know, are kind of surrounding that topic. But let me know what you think about the 5%. Hey, Damien, we always ask, welcome. I think it's your first time. We always ask people to let us know the city, state, province that they're from, okay? So Fatima says, you're absolutely right, but even with these advancements, AI still can't replicate the nuanced decision-making and emotional intelligence that humans bring to many jobs. Sure. Yeah, I agree with that. I think there's a lot of scenarios where it's hard to replace. But you know, I'll tell you a story, Fatima, and I haven't shared this one before. But I'm always trying to work on my emotional intelligence and emotional communication because I think that's super important. I'm not always great at it, but I try. And I actually had a scenario where I had to have a difficult conversation with an ex-girlfriend. And I used ChatGPT to help me refine some of the communication that I wanted to get across. And I wrote what I thought was, you know, a fairly good approach. And then I asked it to grade me on the emotional intelligence of it, and then to suggest any edits. And it actually gave me some really good feedback. So you're reminding me of that scenario because, you know, you're kind of focused on that, and that's all right. But I would actually argue that it kind of does okay in helping you shape different communications, right? And maybe you could even include that in some of your prompts to say, hey, I want to write an email, but please make sure that it has an emotionally intelligent tone. And, you know, from what I've seen in my personal experience, ChatGPT actually doesn't do such a bad job of that, right? So, you know, I understand that in some cases it is going to be difficult, but in my scenario, you know, it actually, you know, did okay. So let me know. Maybe you've had a different experience with the emotional intelligence side of ChatGPT. But to me, it's been one of the times when I've been really impressed by ChatGPT because it's more than just like a like a robot. You know what I mean? So let me know. Maybe you've had a different experience. So Sam says, yes, Dennis, I also agree with your view. Although AI may be far for plant environment, some positions in supporting office will be taken over by AI, especially analytics and reporting roles. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, guys, if you've been attending the sessions, this, last Thursday we did a session on the gold data, right? And ChatGPT basically did a lot of the EDA for us, right? We did some EDA and some charting, right? So yeah, I think that EDA is going to be first, and analytics reporting, yeah, sure. AI is definitely going to be making some big advancements in that. So Leo says, I think it's going to be higher considering the exponential improvements in the models. Yeah, for sure. Definitely higher. Definitely higher. So Damien says, greetings from Poland, Zielonka City. Very cool. Thank you, Damien. Welcome. So Damien says, my opinion is if you learn how to use AI in your job, you will not lose the job. It helps you to solve much faster, more complicated problems. Yeah, 100% agree, Damien. And that's what we've been doing, right? In the Sunday sessions, if you guys have been attending those in the Thursday classes, we're using AI, right? We're using AI to help us be data scientists. And when you think about it, we've written a lot of code in a very, very short amount of time. I mean, last Sunday, we stood up 2 completely different neural networks in like 15 minutes, 20 minutes. Amazing, right? That's amazing, guys. So yeah, I mean, I agree with you, Damien. The time to start preparing is now. But I think it's possible to kind of like reshape your role as an expert. The data scientist of the future will be an expert at making ChatGPT work for them, right? Work for me as an individual in my tasks, in my roles. But yeah, I agree with you, Damien, and I appreciate your rationale. Late Night Works, I think it's your first time. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. So Durban says that they are from South Africa. Very cool. Welcome. Welcome. We get a couple of viewers from South Africa. Love all my followers on the African continent. Thank you. So Leo says, right now I see a lot of people using AI tools for entertainment. At the same time, it's still a challenge for the average professional to have a full understanding and technical ability to implement it. Yeah, but I think that's quickly changing, Leo. I think that's quickly changing. Here, I mean professionals in all fields. Sure. Rahul, our good friend Rahul is back. Hello, Dennis. Today wasn't a ban. I feel like myself. You mean like you banned yourself? Glad to see you here, Rahul. Regarding AI text generator, my girlfriend used to apologize, and I got deeply upset. Used it to apologize. Got deeply upset. Almost broke up. Yeah. I hear you on that, Leo. Yeah. To be clear, the scenario I was referring to was a conversation that I had with an ex. So I definitely didn't copy and paste and put it in an email because you can tell when it's AI generated, obviously. It was a verbal conversation. I just asked it for some guidance, right? And I kind of knew what how to be emotionally intelligent in my message ahead of time, but I did use ChatGPT to kind of form it a little bit. Yassine says, I think more than 5% of jobs can already done by AI at the present time. Okay, so Yassine is saying that's going to be over 5%. Oh, that's hilarious, Rahul. Totally. Sam says, totally agree with Yassine about the 5%. Yeah, I think that's a reasonable amount. Osama says, for example, in finance, the ability to process vast amounts of data, predict market behavior, automate complex tasks and provide real-time insights makes it a game changer for decision making. Yeah, I agree. I agree, Osama. Lots of potential uses. Lots of potential uses. And also, Osama, I think you're hitting on a real key point, and this is a conversation I have a lot with my corporate clients, right? The real power of AI, like the real power, is in the gathering of documents, right? The way it can get information across multiple documents, right? That's the power of generative AI. A lot of people don't understand that, right? And a lot of people don't understand that because you have, I'm sorry, I have to call this out, but you have these idiots like Yan at Facebook, right? I'm pretty. Somebody can correct me on this, but he has said that generative AI is a misnomer because they don't generate anything, and that's dumb, right? That's completely dumb. They generate answers from the variety of documents that no human could do because, it's just such a vast amount, right? And on top of that, they're generating answers because they're basically not stored in a database or in some sort of retrieval system like a chatbot would, right? Because a chatbot, you basically train on a Q&A data set. Right? So that's what a lot of people, even the experts, right, don't understand about generative AI. So I like the way you put that, Osama, because a lot of people miss that. But that's the power of the incredible speed at which you can get those types of answers. Those types of answers that aren't stored somewhere, that aren't in a Q&A set, that aren't in a single document. But they can be generated, right? So that's the power of Gen AI. And like I said, the idiots like Yan who say, oh no, they don't generate anything. That's dumb. Osama, yep, I think more than 5%. Is it Devashish? Hey Devashish, welcome. We asked people to introduce themselves, so let us know where you're from, okay? Talking about Leo's ex-girlfriend, it was like write an apology message based on these screenshots. Oh wow, okay. Thanks for sharing there, Leo. Tony, we always ask people to introduce themselves, so let us know where you're from, okay? We always ask people to introduce themselves, city, state, province, keeps the chat professional and all that. Michael says, I agree with you, Dennis, but do you think AI can do level 2 critical thinking and above? Michael, great question. Great question. My question to you is, does it need it? Does it need level 2 critical thinking to replace a lot of jobs out there? Maybe, maybe not. Right? Like, we can get pretty far with where they are now, right? That's kind of like my question back to you. Is it needed? Maybe it'll be needed for sustained growth, but do we need it now? I'm not convinced of that. Right? What do you think of that? And then also, like Yassine mentioned, and I agree with, it's gonna advance quickly, guys. I mean, like I tell you guys, when I tell you guys that AI is coming and we need to be prepared, I'm talking like 1-2 years max. If you read the article, this guy's talking 10 years. 10 years? Are you kidding me? Like, we're gonna be super advanced in 10 years, right? Like, these models train when the world is sleeping. They don't stop, right? So yeah, Michael, that's my 2-part answer to you. 1, is it needed? Like, who cares if they can't do level 2? And 2, maybe it can't now, but it will. It'll do it soon, right? Right? So let me know what you think, Michael. Rex, are you directing that at me or at somebody in the chat? Rex here is asking about the retrieval augmented generation. Let me know who you're directing that to, Rex. As Dennis knows, I support sentient AI. Oh, that's hilarious. Glad to have you here, Rahul. Anis, our good friend Anis. Hello, everyone. Showed up late again. I think it's going to be higher than 5%. The rate at which these models are getting better is astonishing. I agree, Anis. Have you seen the reasoning capabilities of ChatGPT? Yeah, I have, Anis. I have. I wonder what's going to happen in the upcoming 5 years to some jobs. Yeah. Absolutely. I'm curious in the next 2 years, Anis. I really think it's going to happen so much faster than most people give it credit for. So much faster. Right? But I agree with your overall sentiment, Anis. Yeah, absolutely. I'm sorry, I can't remember if we got where... All right, sorry, Late Night Works is from Durban, South Africa. Right, okay. So Late Night Works, right, more than 5% for sure. Just that most companies are ran mostly by older individuals who generally believe sticking to the ways they know and are not well exposed to the power of AI. Oh my Lord, that's a great statement. Great statement. Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. Now, I will ask, I completely agree with your rationale. Now, I will ask people to, let's rein ourselves in from, talking about older people or okay boomer, all that stuff. Because, ageism is a real thing, right? So we don't want to be, discriminatory against anybody's age or things like that, right? But I do agree with your overall sentiment, because I do think that happens. I see it particularly in academia, where people can kind of get out of touch with what's happening in the real world. Because what drives academia is completely different than what drives the real world, right? And so I do agree with you. Again, no ageism, no discrimination here. But there are some people out there, again, these experts, that really are out of touch. Right? So let's go back to the article a little bit, because I think you're hitting on some of the things that caught my eye too, right? So even just starting from the headlines, right? What the heck is an economist doing commenting on AI? Right? That's the first thing, right? Second thing, this guy has, what do they call it? Like, it's like, he's like the top level. He's an institute professor, the highest title for faculty at MIT. Okay. So I'm guessing you don't get that in your first year, right? This guy's probably been a professor for a long time, right? So that kind of catches my eye, right? Like, when's the last time this guy, was actually at the keyboard, right? And he's an economist, right? So he's not even a tech guy, right? He last published a book in 10 years ago? A decade ago. First made a name for himself beyond academic circles when he published a book, Why Nations Fail, 10 years ago. Okay, maybe this guy doesn't have the most current information, right? And then again, the other thing that caught my eye was his timeline was the next 10 years, right? I can't remember exactly where it was in the article. I'm sure one of you will find it. But yeah, to Late Night Work's point here, that caught my eye too. Like, when's the last time this guy was actually in the field? And what field was that? He's not even a tech guy. He's an economist. Economists tend to, I think studying economics is a very serious field. I would have loved to have majored in it, but it's still a little bit abstract, right? Like, they don't get down to the transaction and finance level, even in microeconomics, right? They're still like looking at it from a macro, from a meta level, and that's okay. But like, how well versed really is this guy on the power of AI? Does he really understand neural networks? So to me, this is one of those consider the source type of articles, right? So think about that, because I do that a lot. And I do that a lot with really a lot of things that I read, either here or on social media or things like that, right? So, I think this is a good segue, guys, because there's another message I kind of wanted to get across during this scenario, and I'm glad that Late Night Works brought this up, because this is a good segue for it. I've talked before about how your best bosses are going to be the ones who appreciate people who don't always agree with them, right? A good leader does not, I repeat, does not want to surround themselves with yes men. A good leader wants people who are willing to stand up and say, well, you know what? I see things a little bit differently, and here's what I suggest. Trust me when I say that your best bosses are gonna appreciate that in you. I've experienced it. I've worked for both types. Your best bosses want a team that is willing to stand up and say, hey, I think we might be wrong here. So let's take that one step further, because this is how I take it one step further. So I'll tell this story quickly, because I don't know if all of you know the story, or maybe in some cultures it's just not popular. But there's the story of the emperor has no clothes, right? There's an emperor living in his village, in his kingdom. One day, he has a mental lapse, if you will, and he forgets to dress up, and he goes out walking in the village naked, because he's getting older, had a mental lapse, or whatever the case was, and he goes out naked. And as he's walking through the middle of the village, all the people gather around, because they still recognize him as the emperor. But nobody wants to say that the emperor is naked. So people start making things up. Oh, look at the beautiful robes the emperor is wearing. Oh, look at the wonderful shoes the emperor is wearing, and he's not wearing anything at all. Oh, look how wonderful our emperor looks in that shirt. They start making things up because nobody wants to tell the emperor anything, right? But in that parade, there's a little baby that's watching and says, what are you guys talking about? The emperor has no clothes. So the baby points out that the emperor has no clothes, right? But before that, all the people were kind of just making things up together, right? They were making things up about how the emperor was dressed because nobody wanted to say anything contrary to that. I like that story a lot. And I'm encouraging you to never be afraid to be that baby. Because there are experts out there that are wrong all the time. Just nobody wants to tell them that. So make sure that you're willing to stop and say, wait a minute, what are you guys talking about? This is clearly wrong. Yeah, this guy was an expert. He was an expert 10 years ago. Right? Never be afraid to say that. That has helped me many, many times in my career to be able to say, the emperor has no clothes. What are you talking about? So again, I like this comment because, we're kind of headed down that road. But when it comes to these types of articles, when it comes to forming your opinion, don't be afraid to go against the grain. Being the baby in that story of the emperor has no clothes has super, super benefit. Right? Because there's experts out there that are praised, that are loved for being wrong. They're just plain wrong. I see this all the time, particularly on Twitter, right? And by the way, if you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm quite combative against some of these dumb experts. I'm not afraid to do that, right? Because they're just plain wrong on some of these items. It takes zero. It takes no bravery for you to just sit there and clap along with the chimps, right? Don't be a chimp that just claps along. That's not the employee your boss wants you to be. That's not what's going to make you a good scientist, right? Do not be afraid to go against the grain and say, stop. You guys are wrong. You are reading this wrong, and that expert that you're praising is an idiot. Here's why. I guarantee you that's going to help you. And more importantly, that's how you break new ground. That's how you break new ground in science, in your career, in other parts of your life. You don't break new ground by just being the monkey clapping along. Right? So keep that in mind. I want to encourage you guys to remember that. So I like the observation that was made here because you have to consider the sources. You have to take the expertise that's being presented in front of you and say, yeah, that's reasonable rationale. Or no, wait a minute, this is completely wrong and I'm not going to be afraid to vocalize it and present my view. I guarantee you that will help you in your career and in your life and in your growth as a data scientist. Okay, so I hope that helps you guys. Good evening. My name is Ezekiel from Nigeria. Welcome, Ezekiel. Nice to see you. Nice to see more people on X. Love it. Yeah, if you guys want to follow me on X, I'm not afraid to put on the gloves. I've done plenty of hand-to-hand combat on X. From Lagos, Gabagata. Okay, cool. Have a couple people from Lagos in here. Yassine says, can you please give an idea about what is level 2 critical thinking? Who brought that up? I think it was, who brought that up? So whoever brought that up, go ahead and say that, right? Dennis, I was referring to you about mentioning how these models are able to provide answers for different sources, including internal. It is my belief that it's RAG. It helps in that respect. Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I'll tell you guys a funny one. And actually, I did a video on this that basically nobody watched because it was like my second video I ever did on YouTube. But you guys can find it. But I actually did something similar for a client. I did a similar video for my client. So I talk about chatbots versus generative AI, right? So chatbots are great and they're basically a solved problem, right? There's no need for you to work on any chatbot software. Plenty of vendors that are out there. Plenty of good vendors that are out there. But a chatbot is basically just, simple NLP, right? And you train it on a QA data set. When somebody asks about this, here's the answers we want you to give. Not a lot of magic to it, right? Some of the chatbot solutions aren't even aren't even saved algorithms. They're what are known as runtime algorithms, right? I mean, they're not even complex. But they're limited to whatever you train it on, right? If it's not in the QA, it doesn't know anything, right? And that's what makes ChatGPT super special, right? So the funny example I gave was, okay, tell me about the immigration laws in the US. ChatGPT can do that, right? But so can a chatbot. But when we're coming back to Rex, as far as the retrieval augmented generation, you can say, tell me about immigration laws in the US, but this time tell me in the style of a Taylor Swift song. Right? You can't save that. You can't save that in a Q&A set, right? A chatbot can't do that. They would tell you, I don't know what you're talking about, because it's not in the trained Q&A set. But ChatGPT can do it, right? Why? Because it knows a bunch of Taylor Swift songs, it can interpret them, and then it knows about the immigration laws, and it can blend the two together. It can generate the two together, right? So that's really the magic of ChatGPT, or at least one of them. I know there's other layers and stuff like that. But, Rex, I hope that gives you an answer, because yes, that's basically what we're talking about. But more importantly, it's what makes ChatGPT special, right? Like when somebody tells me, ChatGPT, and I get this a lot from like the business people who aren't technical. Oh yeah, ChatGPT is just another chatbot. That's somebody who doesn't understand. Michael says, I totally agree with late night works. Yeah, I think he made a good point. Yeah, so thank you for that, Michael. Michael says, to be fair, it's not really needed at the moment, but like you said, AI is quickly evolving, and also its application. Michael, why is it not needed now? I think it's totally needed now. Leo says, absolutely. I know a John Hopkins scientist and researcher that only talks smack about it. Yeah, Leo. There's a lot of people like that, right? A lot of people. And I'm telling you guys, I view those people as dinosaurs. They're chewing on those plants, even though it's dark out and there's a lot of dust in the air. They're these dumb dinosaurs that just kept on going, kept on eating the plants, thinking the plants were going to be there next year, right? But that meteor has hit, right? So I agree with you, Leo. Lots of people are ignorant to that, right? But like I said, guys, there's no bravery in just being a chimp that agrees, right? So be willing to take a stand. Be willing to take a stance. Fatima says, how do you view the current challenges that LLMs face with the Arabic language, given its unique complexity, such as dialect variation, limited availability of training data? Even though models excel in many other languages. I've gotten this question in other ways before, and I can appreciate why you're saying that, Fatima, because I have done some work with character-based language, particularly like Chinese. Fatima, my good friend Fatima. Fatima, do you realize that you are sitting on a gold mine? Like you are sitting on a big pot of gold right now. Read your statement, and you are sitting on a big pot of gold. Like, it's a challenge, but there's an opportunity in that challenge, right? Like, why can't you make the Arabic chat GPT? Right? Like, there's a massive opportunity there in that challenge. Huge opportunity. So I hear you, right? Every language has its complexity and all that, right? But that's a challenge. That's an opportunity. So like, all of like the Moroccans in the chat like need to get together and like you guys have a startup on your hands, right? Like that's a startup. Like do it for Arabic, do it for Darija, do it for, all the other variations of Arabic, which I realize is a lot, right? But there's like a massive opportunity. So that's how I would view it, Fatima. Like you're sitting on an opportunity, right? Like yeah, I mean, obviously you could say, oh, like LLMs are so English centric, Western centric, et cetera, et cetera. But that's an opportunity. So think about that, right? I mean, like if you did that, you're not gonna be buying one house. You're gonna be buying 2 houses in the Meekness countryside, right? Like, lots of opportunity in that. So think about that, Fatima. Casual Economist says, shout out to economic. Yeah, that's right, Casual Economist. These are your people, right? These are your people putting out this shaky information, right? Damien says, what do you think about 2 ways of development AI? First way for people as a hobby tool, and the second more powerful to solve economic medical problems. Yeah, I mean, they're going to happen, right? Like they're going to happen. I mean, I don't view them as a good thing, bad thing, positive thing. It's just the way of the world. Maybe I'm taking too much of a simplistic view of it, but so Ezekiel says, if I may ask, what are the requirements needed for data science? Because I have met with a lot of people in this data analysis field that have no idea or answers to the question I asked earlier. I'm sorry, Ezekiel, what was the question you asked earlier? I'm not sure I have an earlier question from you, Ezekiel. I have your introduction, but what was the earlier question? I'm sorry. Rex says, the thing is that baby didn't have a job they would lose by admitting to the emperor I had no clothes on, but I do get your message. But here's the thing though, Rex, if somebody knocks you down for pointing that out in a job, you shouldn't want that job anyways. Only your worst bosses are going to want you to be a yes man. I 100% guarantee this to you guys. Your best bosses are going to form a team that are not always going to agree with them. I 100% guarantee you that. Trust me on that. If you take nothing else from my content, I guarantee you that. So if somebody does knock you down for that, it was a bad job to begin with, right? So you're gonna want to be able to build those skills to be able to say that, right? Now, to be clear, it's all you're also gonna have to deliver your message in a tactful way, right? Now I know I sit here and I say, oh, this expert's an idiot, right? Obviously, I wouldn't say it in that way in a work environment, right? I'm just saying that because it's just us talking here, right? So yes, you are going to want to deliver it in a tactful way. Hey, boss, I love you, but I think we can take a different way here, right? But if you really do get knocked down for that, it was a bad job to begin with, Rex. So that's what I would tell you. Okay. And again, you can't hope to break new ground if you're not going to do that anyways. So that means you're not going to advance in your job anyways, right? So like yeah, you're still employed, but you're always going to be the junior guy working for a terrible boss. Like that doesn't sound appetizing, right? So Like, I recognize it takes bravery, right? But you got to do it. Satyam says, I think AI is going to take over all jobs, and it's going to be more quick than we expected. Even if it's creativity or solving complex problems, it's going to change the world a lot if governments don't intervene. Yeah, Satyam, I agree with that. I think it is going to happen significantly quicker than people realize. Like super quickly. So yeah, I totally agree. Why would we torture a chatbot so bad with such a request? Give me the output as a Taylor Swift song. That's funny. Hey, it catches good eyeballs, right? Like when I put out that video, like people could relate to it, because this was the height of when it was about her concert tickets and all that. So people can relate to it, right? Guys, you got to meet people at their level. So I did that Taylor Swift analogy just to kind of be fun with people, and again, you got to show some personality as a data science guy, right? This is the stuff that the math PhDs don't do, right? But you got to be different. You got to show personality. Hey, I'd like to talk to you, right? Because you don't want to walk into a room of business leaders. You're talking to nothing but senior vice presidents and directors. They lead all of these teams, not technical and all that, right? Do you want to walk in and say, hey, I'd like to talk to you about math and these great neural networks? Or do you want to walk in and say, hey, who wants to talk about Taylor Swift? Right? I mean, come on, you gotta have some showmanship, right? You gotta, there's a little Taylor Swift in all of us, right? So you gotta bring it out. Oh man. You know what show I was late to? Have you guys ever watched the show Brooklyn Nine-Nine? I don't know if they show it overseas. I'm assuming they do. But it's a great scene where one of the detectives is talking to another one, and he says, one asks the other, who was the other band? Like, yeah, I think one of them says, why do you lie about Metallica being your favorite band when we all know it's Taylor Swift? And he's like, well, because Taylor Swift makes me feel things. And the other detective just says, she makes us all feel things. So, I mean, come on, everybody can relate to Taylor Swift, right? So, you gotta have some showmanship, Leo. You gotta, have fun with your audience, keep your audience engaged, and everybody knows Taylor Swift, right? Rex says, definitely answers my question. Well, I'm glad, Rex, but unfortunately, we insulted Leo's sensibilities because he was offended that we talked about Taylor Swift. So Rex, I'm glad you found it helpful, but my apologies to Leo, whose sensibilities were affected. I'm sorry, Leo. Apparently Yassine agrees with Leo too. Casual Economist says, I don't agree with this study. Okay, cool. Tell us why. Right? A good scientist also presents their rationale, right? So tell us why, Casual Economist. And so I'm assuming you think it's going to be more than 5%, right? So let us know. What do you think? What's the number? Let us know, Casual Economist. Dennis, do you believe regulations would improve the AI acceptance and applications in other industry, like an essential tool? I don't think it's going to take over all the jobs. I don't know, Leo. Government regulation is always a tricky thing, right? Like, are you going to be regulating the creation of them, the use of them, both, neither one of those? Kind of hard to say, right? Like you'd have to define that, right? But generally speaking, most people are hesitant towards government regulation, right? And most industries take like a self-regulating model, right? I mean, generally speaking, if you look, for the last 30 years, the U.S. government, kind of kind of says, okay, well, look, you guys got to regulate yourselves before we do it, right? And most industries get their act together and do it, right? So I think it just depends. It depends on what that would look like, right? But most industries don't let it get to that point, right? Because generally speaking, there's very, very few government regulated industries. If anything, I think the most one at danger would be self-driving cars. I really, really hope that more government regulation intervenes in that space. But that's me. That's my bias, right? I'm very down on self-driving cars. But I just don't think it'll get to that way as far as like, how I use AI in my company is regulated by the government. I'm not convinced of that. So yeah. Leo says, oh boy, that's why AI is going to take over. Yeah, maybe. The Taylor Swift thing is an American thing. Is it? I don't know. She's had an international tour, right? She's not on her way to being a billionaire because it's just, Americans buying her stuff, right? So I don't know, Michael. I think she's a little bit more involved than that, right? So yeah. But you guys tell me. You guys tell me in the chat, right? But my well-trained Taylor Swift algorithm tells me that she's pretty as she's pretty as pretty international as you can get. Sir, one thing I think about often is when AI takes over jobs, it's true that productivity will improve, but economically, if people are working less, then we'll have the purchasing power to consume. Maybe. Would people be working less, or would they be working more, like producing more? Right? Because, I talk about this to you guys, right? When we talk about being a data scientist that enhances their work with AI, I talk to you guys about how it means that your timelines are going to be reduced. Maybe last year your boss gave you 4 weeks and now you're only getting 2 weeks. Okay. But from a project planning perspective, your boss only had so much capability for tools they were going to develop that year. Maybe they could only commit to developing 3 tools a year. Well, now could they develop 6 tools a year? Maybe, right? So you could argue that output would go up. You're still employed. You're just producing more tools. Like, they're not just going to send you home for the other 2 weeks that they've saved, right? So maybe I think there's a case where, maybe an argument to be made where it would go up, not down. So think about that, Yassine. What do you think about that? I could see it. About regulations, I worry about personal data collection from companies like OpenAI and how can that be affecting AI implementation in different areas. I foresee a future where people would be working the same, but with more productivity and better results. Yep. I agree with that, Leah. I mean, that's basically what I just described, right? But yeah, as far as the personal data collection, sure, Leah, I agree with that. But I think about this too, Leo. And in many ways, I think that maybe like we're beyond this, right? Because so many people give up their data so quickly in so many different ways, right? Like that's almost like the cat's already out of the bag, right? Like all these waivers and service agreements and things like that you sign, like you've already given your stuff away, right? So like I think like the real companies, like the data brokers and stuff like that, to them AI is like a nothing burger, right? Like they already have your data, right? So like I hear your concern, but like I think it's already happened, right? Like like everything you sign has those, uh those statements about, well, we reserve the right to sell to our partners and affiliates and blah blah blah. So if you signed one of those, you've signed 100 of them, right? So like I hear you, Leo. I'm concerned about that too, but it's like I don't think like the data brokers are excited, right? Like I think they already know, like they already have it. So the tough issue. Yassine says, yes, they will produce more. My question is, if they produce more that can be consumed, would we reach a point where productivity is actually not needed because the market is already satisfied? Maybe, but I think that the traditional economist view would be that Yassine says, as I'm writing that, I'm thinking maybe in the future we'll have very different needs. Yeah, Yassine, so that's kind of where I was going with it, right? Because the traditional economist view would say, well, that's just going to lead to more competition. And more competition usually leads to more innovation, right? So maybe we will have different needs because there will be more competition, more and different demands from the consumer market, or whatever market you're in, right? So I see an upside to it, right? More products, more competition, more innovation, right? Like they're not going to be producing stuff that doesn't sell, right? Like we talked about, maybe you only produce 3 tools a year. Excuse me, sorry. Maybe you only produce 3 tools a year, now you're producing 6 tools a year. Well, they still want the 6 to sell, right? It's not just busy time where they're developing stuff that nobody cares about, right? So, I can see it both ways. Felipe, we usually ask people to introduce themselves, so let us know where you're from, okay? Yeah, but for OpenAI, imagine a company having your behavior habits, deep thoughts, and dirty little secrets. My friend, that already exists. It's Google. Like Google has that, right? That's already out there. I heard a story. I'm not gonna give. I don't want to call anybody out, but I heard a great story. A very 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 high level executive that I worked with. Very very high level executive I worked with. Was offered a tour of Google, like the Google headquarters, and one of their largest, network operations centers, and one of their largest, like big data centers. And the tour was given by some very, very high level people at Google, right? So, very high level tour. And the person took some of their staff. I think in total there were like 10 people on the tour or something. And the way that Google closes out this tour is by taking you to one of their like big data environments. And they tell you, if you give me your Google or your Gmail, your Google account username, we can tell you everything you've done for the life of that account. We know who you've emailed, what you've looked up, what you viewed, how long you viewed it, everything. Like they could give you a personal history, like dossier on your entire Google history. And they always, I can't remember if they give the example before or after, but I think like the way they told me about it is that they give you an example of like a random person's, dossier or what they show. And the Google the Google tour guides or the executives that are leading the tour, they always say, "Hey, does anybody want to volunteer to give their Gmail name and we'll show you the same dossier." And 10 people on this tour, nobody volunteers after seeing that information. Because they know a ton. Right? Like they show you the example and everybody's like, "Whoa, you're not getting my Gmail name whatsoever," right? So I thought that was a funny story, and I guarantee it's true because the person who told me that story is somebody I trust. And like I said, they took the tour from very trusted, very high level executives, but like that already exists, Leo. I mean, and also if you want to get the scary version. That's how they make their money, right? Because they sell that data. I mean, how do you think they pay for Gmail, right? Gmail is not free, guys. Google makes money on it. They sell that data, right? So, Leo, that already exists. And then, of course, they're feeding their own AI models with that data, right? But Google already has it. Like, as I get older, the more I realize that, these large companies are far from altruistic, right? Like, be careful anytime you're dealing with a big corporation. It's all about money. It's all about money. Right? So yeah. So be careful. But Leo, I would tell you it already exists. It already exists, and then they sell it. And then those data brokers combine it with their data, right? Because they have stuff that Google wouldn't have. Like, who's your cable company? Who's your phone company? What phone calls have you made, right? What channels have you watched? Google wouldn't have that, right? But other brokers do, right? So that's already out there, Leo. Leo says, "Okay, just making it clear that sometimes my neighbor uses my line." Oh, that's hilarious. Oh, that's funny. That is hilarious. Well, make sure you write down those times, Leo. Because the FBI probably already knows it. So Felipe says, "Hello, I am in Minneapolis." Okay, we have 2 people from Minneapolis. All right. I'm big in Minneapolis, guys. Woohoo! I think it will enable creative people and those with entrepreneurial spirit to be more productive. I have started to use AI in my current workflow as a data scientist. Good. We should all be doing that, right? And if you want more examples of that, Felipe, start coming to our classes on Sundays. That's exactly what we do, right? I think it's foolish to start from a blank screen. Start using ChatGPT as much as you can, right? Absolutely start using as much as you can, especially in your work as a data scientist. Just last weekend, we stood up 2 neural networks in like 15 minutes. I mean, that's amazing, guys. That is amazing. If you're not amazed by that, I mean, check your pulse. You're already dead. AI is scary to those who marry themselves to mastering a certain tool or coding. Being a prompt engineer and architecting projects, applications, tool is the way to think, I believe. Felipe, have you been watching my content? This is exactly the stuff I talk about, right? This is exactly what I talk about. I'm completely on board with it, right? Like, to me, the people who are still coding are dinosaurs. They're dinosaurs that are dying that don't even know it, right? But yeah, it's about being a good prompt engineer and taking that meta view and being able to say, hey, what are the components and pieces that I need? Okay, I've designed that, I've architected that. Now I'm going to use ChatGPT to create those, right? So yeah, this is exactly the stuff I talk about. So welcome to the chat. You're in the right place. You know, I mean, I don't know how long ago you discovered this, but if you had joined us previously, you would have discovered this months ago, because this is exactly what we talk about, right? But yeah, you know, I am so disappointed in how many people are out there. They're just holding on to their GitHub, holding on to their VS Code, and I'm gonna make it with JavaScript. I'm gonna be a big time JavaScript developer, and I'm gonna learn Python. I'm gonna learn PHP. They're dead and they don't even know it. I mean, it's terrible. It's terrible. And as I told you guys, I see this particularly on X. For some reason, X is filled with these people who are just, they're ignorant. They're ignorant. And they completely bash AI. And they just don't understand the speed at which these algorithms will learn. And, you know, as in the article that we saw, you know, I really think a lot of people are missing the boat on that. So I'm glad you're here. I'm glad all of you are here. I'm glad all of you are preparing yourselves, because I think that this is what data science and development of the future will look like. So I congratulate all of you for taking those steps and moving forward in your careers, because I really think this is important. And I also, I really think that the discussion that we've had today is really important, you know, the back and forth, right? So I would encourage all of you to also work on your rationale, right? It's important to have a position, but tell me why. Tell me why. You got to back it up. You got to have some rationale. And don't be afraid to put your rationale out there, because another good data scientist will evaluate you on your rationale. Period. Right? So don't be afraid. You know, put it out there and say, hey, this is what I think. This is how I came up with the answer. Right or wrong, this is my thinking. And, you know, me as an example, me as another professional data scientist can look at you and say, yeah, sure, that sounds good. I may not agree with your results, but your rationale seems solid, so cool. Nothing wrong with that, right? I have been following your content since mid-August. I had some of these intuitions on my own, but seeing someone like yourself who's more senior in the field confirmed my suspicions. Okay, cool. Thank you so much. Appreciate your support, Felipe. Yeah, it's a good thing you didn't find some of these other guys, right? Because some of these other people out there would tell you, oh, no. You got to continue learning, you know, my JavaScript course, because JavaScript is how you're going to find a remote job and become this great developer and all this other nonsense, right? But yeah, I completely agree with you, Felipe. It's going to be a whole different world that we're headed into. Whole different world. So yeah, I'm glad we went over this article. I think the majority of us are in disagreement with that. So get out there, right? You're going to find more articles like this. Get out there, form an opinion, stand by it. Don't be afraid to be the small child that says the emperor has no clothes, right? I'm telling you guys, this is super important in your career. It served me well, right? This is me giving you my life advice, right? Because I've never been a yes man, right? I'm not afraid to tell other people that, right? You know what? I'll close with this story, because, you know, like I said, I work for good bosses, and I've had bosses tell me, "Hey, I appreciate you speaking up." But I remember one time, it's actually my mentor. I tell you guys how I have this mentor that I worked with 10 years ago, and my mentor told me that this is kind of how when we had these conversations, this is how we kind of became friendly on a personal level, and how, you know, he went on to mentor me. But I remember that he took me aside one day, and he said, "Dennis, you know, I really like you. And I really like you because you know when to tell me no. And more importantly, you know the best way, or what did he say? You know the professional way to tell me no. And a lot of people don't tell me no. So guys, I'm giving you advice from my own playbook, from my own experience, when I tell you that the best bosses you have are the ones that are gonna, appreciate that in you. Because he told me that, and 10 years later, he's still my mentor, right? And I've worked for other bosses since him where, they've told me similar things, right? So get out there, read these articles, have an opinion, have a position, be professional about it, and I guarantee you that it will help you. So guys, thank you so much. Long stream today, but really enjoyed it. We've had some really good conversations over the last 2 streams, and I'm just really grateful that, the powers above have let me be in this position to be able to share this with all of you. So really happy to have all of you guys, so I really wish, the best for all of us here, but, really happy over the last 2 streams here. So thank you all so much. So please, lots of crazy stuff happening in the world right now. So please, take care of yourselves, take care of your families, and I'll see you next time.